Today is an evening with a difference. Different because unlike our usual practice of having one distinguished artist, today we have the privilege of three stalwarts of art. The renowned art anthropologist Dr. Eberhard Fischer, the acclaimed film director Amit Datta, and our much admired art historian and connoisseur, Professor N Goswamy. This evening is also different because the focus is not on the whole body of these eminent people's works, but on another personage from the past, whom they have been instrumental in bringing under the spotlight of modern times, the 18th century Pahari painter from Guler, Nainsukh. Artists come and go, leaving behind their works, of which only a few survive the ravages of time and trends. Much of the art produced down centuries of civilizations would be lost to us were it not for the relentless and painstaking research carried out by anthropologists and historians. One such leading art anthropologist is Dr. Eberhard Fischer, an expert on Indian and African art. Dr. Fischer received his Ph.D. from the Basle University in 1965 and began his India connection soon after, on being invited as a consultant at the National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad. He moved on to collaborate with the Gujarat Vidyapith and the Calico Museum from 1968 to 71 as the representative of the University of Heidelberg. Over the years, he has conducted commendable field work in Gujarat, Orissa, and Himachal Pradesh in India, as well as in Liberia and the Ivory Coast in Africa. A glimpse of his 3 decades of work on Indian art can be seen in the 2-volume tome, Masters of Indian Painting from 1100 to 1900, which he co-edited with Milo Beach and Professor Goswamy. His discoveries of Pahari art have contributed hugely in the making of the film on Nainsukh, of which he is the producer. Researching on art is one thing, bringing it to the public is quite another, and is a valued contribution in its own right. In Amit Datta, we can feel the zest to bring art out from the cloisters of museums and galleries through the medium of cinema. Jammu-born Amit Datta has, in the short span of just about 7 years, etched for himself a formidable reputation as an award-winning experimental filmmaker. Having graduated from the TRTI of India in 2004, he has already notched 4 national awards, one for his film Kramasha at the Oberhausen Film Festival, Germany, then the Gold Micaldi at Bilbao in Spain, the Golden Conch, the Best Film of the Festival Award at the Mumbai International Film Festival, and the John Abraham National Award from Kerala. His first feature film, Aadmi Ki Aurat or Anya Kahaniyan, won the jury's Special Mention Prize at the 66th Venice Film Festival held in 2009. The film was selected also as the lone Indian entry to the main program of the 47th Biennale. The South Asian International Film Festival also featured his Son Chiri. Nainsukh, the film based on the painter's life, premiered at the 67th Venice Film Festival and then has since traveled to Rotterdam, San Francisco, Belfort, Isola, and the Beijing Film Festival, among many others. Datta's works have a distinct pictorial language in which Indian mythology rubs shoulders with his personal symbolism. In the film being showcased today, we shall experience not only his creativity and insights, but also how one young contemporary artist delves into the life, times, and mind of another artist of a much earlier time. A scholar's or creative artist's dedication of his work to someone carries great import, for it is a declaration of that person's deep and abiding influence on him or her. The film Nainsukh is dedicated to none other than Professor Goswamy, whose book Nainsukh of Guler, a great Indian painter from a small hill state, published in 1997, is the fount which has inspired further research and art. Professor Goswamy's name is synonymous with art history and erudition internationally. And we in Chandigarh lay proud claim to his long association with this city and its University Department of Art History. Graced with India's top awards such as the Padma Shri and the Padma Bhushan, with an awe-inspiring academic career of unbeaten firsts all throughout, Professor Goswamy has authored over 15 books on art history on topics ranging from painters at the Mughal court to Sikh art, the history of costumes, and the history of ancient sacred manuscripts. Dr. Goswamy has held visiting professorships and guest lectureships in universities and museums in major cities of the US, Canada, Switzerland, France, Australia, as well as at practically all the major centers of art and learning in India. His experience and wise counsel have placed him on the governing bodies of many, many academies and museums of art and culture across the country. The dedication of this award-winning film to Professor Goswamy is a fitting tribute to this jewel of the art world.
Good evening, friends. Good evening, everybody. As you all know, we have been organizing events for the last few years. This is a very special event for us because it's a rare combination of a painter, an art historian, and a filmmaker getting together and thinking, writing, and producing something which will be in front of you after a while, which is such a wonderful creation in itself. Even if we forget about the history of art, if we forgot all these gentlemen who are in front of us with great contribution to the field of art, even the painter also, just the film itself is a work of art. I can guarantee you that. I also welcome, because this is the first opportunity for me to welcome Mr. K.K. Sharma. He's been a great support to the Academy and anybody active in the field of art, and we expect great things from him, and I'm sure he will not disappoint us because he has not done so far. Thank you so much, and welcome once again. Welcome Dr. Fischer, welcome Dr. Goswamy. As ever, always, Mrs. Judge has been a wonderful person whom we discovered God knows how, and she has made things so much easier for me. I don't really have to speak anything. She has given the wonderful introduction. Now I'll invite Professor Eberhard Fischer. I'm sorry if I have said professor. He insists on doctor. Please come and share your experiences with us.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am most honored to speak to you tonight about the film and why a Swiss museum and a Swiss museum director has done a film on Nainsukh. This is the first time the film Nainsukh is shown in India. And it's a very auspicious occasion for me that Professor Goswamy, to whom the film is dedicated, is here, and so many distinguished guests have come. Thank you that you have come. Now, my interest in Indian painting started with Professor Goswamy's first lecture at the Rietberg Museum. As you heard, I became director of the Rietberg Museum in 1972, after having spent years in India, before that in Gujarat mainly, working on Adivasi culture, working on Patola textiles, which I took as a very auspicious moment that you introduced the film and me wearing a Patola from Gujarat. So Indian paintings were not something I was brought up with. I was brought up with Eskimo Inuit art and African art because this is the specialty of my father. And from small onward, I was trained to see quality in non-Western art and to distinguish carefully the quality what a really great artist produced and what a mediocre artist produced. For that you need a special, you have to train your eyes, you have to learn to see minute differences sometimes. And Indian painting by itself is small. So even there you have to be even more precise in watching. Don't forget, the part of the painting you see here is in reality smaller than a postcard. And you see what high quality, if you look at the features of Nainsukh standing behind his patron, Balwant Singh of Jasrota. Now, it takes time, and it didn't come to me from today to tomorrow. It needed quite several years, and I had the good luck that the Rietberg Museum suddenly, when I was director, got a legacy of about 500 Indian miniatures. This was the beginning. They came from late Alice Bohner, had been displayed 1961 in Venice, and I had to learn to handle them, and I had the great fortune that Professor Goswamy annually came to the Rietberg Museum for a lecture, and I could ask him at least for advice and whether I dated a thing rightly or attributed it rightly or not. So our relationship slowly developed, and then we decided to make a catalog on these Alice Bohner things. Then we realized there were gaps. I started to collect Indian miniatures for the Rietberg Museum. Now, to make the point very clear, I have never in my life bought an Indian painting which was older than 5 years in India itself. I've never, when I was director of the Rietberg Museum, gone to any Indian dealer of paintings or sculptures. In all these 30 more years I was director of the Rietberg Museum, I did not buy a single Indian sculpture for the Rietberg Museum because of the Antiquity Act of India. But Indian paintings, which were private possessions, were given in dowry, were given as loans, etc. In Indian history, I felt is something a European museum can acquire internationally. And a large number of very important Indian paintings have been taken as mementos of British residents in India to England, and were available in the 70s, 80s, early 90s on the market in London. And I regularly had to go and search for paintings in Paris, in Amsterdam, in London, in New York, to assemble a large group of important paintings for the Rietberg Museum in Zurich. Zurich sounds to you very rich, but the Rietberg Museum never was rich. So I had always to find the money from private sources to make people aware that these paintings should be the possession of the Rietberg Museum. Now, then, the other thing is you want to make exhibitions. But the first finest exhibition Professor Goswamy again did with my collaboration on Mughal paintings from Swiss collections. This was basically the collection of Sadruddin Aga Khan and other collectors in Geneva. And then came the Pahari Masters exhibition, which was a very important exhibition because it was the first time that individual master painters from Jammu, Kashmir, and Himachal were shown as individual painters with their special oeuvre assembled. It changed a bit the attitude of many other historians too. Up to then only saw iconography, style connected with the history of specific areas or with special princely families, etc. And here we really try to emphasize the quality achieved by an individual Indian painter. Painter working in workshops, family workshops, over generations. Now, the most important painter, obviously, for the period between 1650 and 1850 is the painter Nainsukh, according to my quality judgment. And the person who has worked on the painter Nainsukh most is Professor N Goswamy. So once you learn to see properly, and my eyes were opened by Professor Goswamy, and I learned from him to view a painting in detail and keep in mind the delicacies and look more carefully possibly than I would have ever done before, shows how fantastic the quality of Nainsukh was, what an achievement he had done in his time. We did an exhibition on Nainsukh in 1999. That was to commemorate the volume on, you have heard, the first monograph ever being published on an Indian painter by Professor Goswamy was on Nainsukh, a great painter of a small hill state. This, I'm proud to say, I'm the publisher of this book, which is already in the second edition. It's available again in India by Niyogi Publishing House. It is the book in which all the information on the painter Nainsukh is available, and it's quite a lot because of the field work and the research and the very careful reading of inscriptions on Nainsukh. Professor Goswamy has put together the oeuvre of Nainsukh, about 100 paintings, many of them in the Chandigarh Museum, here in this town. Some of the finest drawings of Nainsukh are here. The paintings of Nainsukh's brother's portrait, Nainsukh's father portrait are here. The other place in which major collections are is the Mumbai Museum, former Prince of Wales Museum, which has acquired a collection of Nainsukhs which came on the London market in 1931. Sotheby's got from one Mr. Datta a large collection of Nainsukh paintings which did not sell, and many of them went back to Bombay and are now in the Bombay Museum. Others came on the market and are now, for instance, in the Rietberg Museum. It shows you how early Nainsukh paintings came on the market, by the way. Then the third large important collection is in Calcutta, then in the Bharat Kala Bhavan in Benares, or in the National Museum in Delhi. So these are the large holdings in India. Other holdings are in the Victoria and Albert Museum, and I would say now in the Rietberg Museum. Now, when we decided to make a very comprehensive exhibition, it was meant a bit as the follow-up of the Pahari Masters exhibition in the Rietberg Museum on Indian masters of the 11th to the 19th century. Obviously, the painter we know most about through the research work of Brajendra is the painter Nainsukh. So I first thought I'm doing some video installation or something like this, and thinking about it and talking about it. Once Barbara, my wife, and myself were in the Fex Valley, somewhere in the Engadine in Switzerland, and I said, look, there is the date 1730. This is a conflict between brothers, generation problem. This is dramatic. This has strength. We should really do something more lively than just slides and showing the ruins of it. So you will see the film starts with the date 1730. And I had the good fortune of meeting Suresh, what's his second name? Chapriya, sorry. Suresh Chapriya. He is the professor is the retired professor now for film criticism and appreciation. And I talked to him, and he said whether he would like to make a film on Nainsukh, because he is extremely knowledgeable and he has read he knows Pahari Masters now better than Professor Goswamy and myself by heart. But he said, no, I've never done a film, but there is one Amit Datta. And that Amit Datta is the most promising young filmmaker I've ever met in my life. You might try to work with him. So I said, then we three, I met Professor Chapriya and Amit Datta in Dharamsala at the airport. I'd never met Amit Datta before. And then I took them to all the different places where Nainsukh had lived. That means we went to Guler first, we went to Jasrota, we went to Nurpur, we went to Kangra, we went to the entire area. You have to know that for many years, every year, for at least 5 weeks, I traveled in Himachal, and I've seen Chamba Valley, Kulu Valley, Mandi Valley, Kangra Valley very carefully, and have recorded all the different ruins there, the murals there, the craftsmen who are still there. So Amit and we traveled now in Himachal, and I could get Amit to get involved in the topic. Amit himself comes from Jammu and is brought up about 20 kilometers away from the ruin of Jasrota, which plays in the film the major portion, because our painter Nainsukh shifted in the age of about 25, 28 from his home place Guler to Jasrota, where he found a new patron, first the father of this Balwan Singh, Zorawar Singh, and then later he became the court painter of this Zorawar Singh, whom you see here. Balwan Singh, sorry. Now, we decided that we would produce a film in the localities where Nainsukh lived. But we would not recreate anything, but we keep the audience understanding that time has passed, and you will find that we are the animation of the characters takes place in the ruins of the sites where formerly this, what you see in the film, really took place. We decided that the entire film is based on about 35 paintings of Nainsukh. Many of these you will see in the film too, sometimes before, sometimes after the scenes. It's a film which takes up a lot of refinement from Nainsukh's paintings. That means you will realize that in the Nainsukh paintings there are no shadows. If you look in the film, there's hardly any shadows. If you see how the horizontal line is taken, it's like this. Many paintings in Nainsukh's are triptych. The film takes this too. Or in the film you will see that, in Nainsukh's paintings you will realize there is way less of a straight viewing. Very often it's slightly from above down. We call, Professor Goswamy and myself like to call that the balcony view, which from the Mughal period onward, Indian artists prefer. Same thing we do in the film. Like this, there are many delicate details in the film, which if you look at the paintings carefully, you will see there is some resemblance. It's not a film which is meant to be a costume film. We do this, we subdue this. We are very careful not to be overpowering with beautiful jewelry and things like this. This was not our point. Our point was much more subtle. As you can see, hear me now, I'm very fond of our product. And the product, the film, has been done as a low-budget film. But still, you will see there, we had a large crew of about 60 people constantly working in the film. And I'm extremely happy that the film is appreciated in the West very much. It will be shown in February in the Museum of Modern Art in a very small section. It is just now shown in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and it has been even a version with Chinese subtitles made for more film festivals in China. So we are quite happy with Nainsukh film, and I hope you will enjoy it too, and you will find it worth your attention to look at the film later. Thank you.
May I say how honored and humbled I feel at being asked to speak on this occasion, especially because Eberhard, friend of mine of 40 years, has dedicated this film to me. It's somewhat inappropriate for me to be speaking, and I may be appearing as a kind of unnecessary interference in this entire evening's proceedings. But I'm happy to share a few things with you. You can be sure that when you see the film and you see the paintings and drawings of Nainsukh, you are entering a very subtle world, a very, very subtle and understated world. You know, somebody said, I think it was the poet Mir who said about subtlety, about softness, Le saans bhi ahista ke nazuk hai bahut kaam, afaq ki is kargahe shisha gari ka. Breathe gently and softly, because the world that you are entering is made of glass, is brittle, fragile, and therefore tread into it carefully. That is the kind of world which Nainsukh created, and that, to my mind, is the kind of world which this film, which my dear friend Eberhard Fischer, along with Amit Datta, has created. I am honored by the fact that I figure in it somewhere. My voice would be heard. I will not appear. I mean, he, in fact, once decided to offer me the role of Nainsukh's father, which I gratefully declined. But whatever. I did not know anything about what the film was about. I had no idea at all. It was being kept as a kind of a secret from me. And I only saw a few stills from time to time. But let me take you for a few minutes, just a few minutes, into the kind of effort and the kind of energy which it needed to put together a few facts on Nainsukh. Till today, Nainsukh remains the painter, the only painter in the entire history of India before 1900, on whom we have a set of indisputable facts. It comes as a surprise to everyone. Most people think that everyone knows who painted what. That certainly is not the case. You know, sometimes I wonder what the role of an art historian is, and I think in terms of images. You know, if you go to Haridwar, as you know, the departed one's ashes are immersed into the holy river. And along with the ashes, very often a tiny piece of gold is immersed as a tribute to the river. And there are people who are professionals who do nothing else except look for those pieces of gold at the bottom of the steps. And they hold in their hands fairly large pieces of glass with which they train the sunlight onto the bottom of the steps and so on. And the moment they see something, they dive and pick it up. They are art historians. Now these people are like you and me, like some of us, who dive at the appropriate moment to pick a nugget and present it. The art historian in India is in a very, very difficult position because the world of art is one of silence. Remarkably few facts have come into view, have swung into our own ken, and therefore to try and piece together the whole life of a painter is not the easiest thing in the world to do. Let me take you with me to one or two places as I was trying to research Nainsukh. Why am I interested in Nainsukh? You will see for yourselves when the film comes on. But somehow Nainsukh had become a part of me. I had a running argument with a very esteemed colleague of mine, a friend of mine, William Archer, who was the curator of the Indian section of the Victoria and Albert Museum. And we argued about it, Nainsukh, this and that and so on. And so he was very keen on identifying Balwant Singh as a prince from Jammu. I have no problems with Jammu at all, especially not with Mr. K.K. Sharma sitting here, who comes from that same area. But I thought that my facts were leading me towards Jasrota, which is a very, very minor, small principality. And I said to him once, to William Archer, I said, what is the problem? You agree and I agree that these paintings were done by Nainsukh. But he was stuck on Balwant Singh of Jammu, I was stuck on Balwant Singh of Jasrota. And the argument went on for a long time. It's not because I was trying to prove a point that he was from Jasrota, but Nainsukh had somehow taken possession of me. And very often, jokingly, I would say to William Archer, you see yourself as Balwant Singh, I see myself as Nainsukh, like this, right? He had identified himself somehow with a prince, and I was not too sympathetic to princes, so I was doing something differently. Anyway, I was in Haridwar. That is where I had gone and spent a number of days, weeks, trying to collect information about painters. Where do I find information on painters? I spent 3 years of my life, close to 3 years, trying to piece together the names of artists, their movements, their dates and so on, from the records that pandas, priests at places of pilgrimage keep. And I had struck gold in Kurukshetra, in Pehova, in Martand in Kashmir. I had been to Gaya, been to Benares, and Haridwar obviously was the place where most information could possibly be gathered. And there I was in Haridwar. I had good recommendations from a member of the family who had been pandas, at that particular place, and I went to them and I said, I'm looking for the Guler Bahi. Bahi means a pothi, a book in which the records of pilgrims are placed. Now, priests and yajamans, as they are called, clients, are in a very long association over hundreds of years. And you cannot change your priest, and the priest cannot switch over to another yajaman. So there is a long, durable relationship between them. And I was convinced that if Nainsukh was from Guler, I will probably find him in the Guler Bahi at Haridwar. The Pandit, the Panda, Sardar Ram Kumar's son, Sardar Ram Rakha's son, Sardar Ram Kumar, was the one whom I met. And he said, yeah, we own the Guler Bahi. I don't know whether there are any painters in it, but we own the Guler Bahi. Fine. I said, may I see it? I will not take you into the long story, because it is very difficult to get past the initial reluctance on the part of the pandas to show their records to a person who doesn't come from the same family as the person who is looking for. And he said, no, I'll have the Guler Bahi, but it is in the court. It's a part of a court record because some litigation was going on, and I cannot take it out of that. So there I was against a dead wall. But 3 days later, since I had good recommendations to the Panda, 3 days later I was staying in the Gita Bhavan in Haridwar. The same Panda, Sardar Ram Kumar, the bundle sort of under his left armpit, came up and said, you were looking for the Guler Bahi. I have got it from the court. How he got it from the court's records, took it out, obviously more foul means than fair. So he placed it in front of me and said, here is the Bahi, so try your luck. I have no idea what you are looking for. So I sat there and I started, this was late afternoon, started leafing through leaf after leaf after leaf of that. And when I turned one particular page, there was an entry by Nainsukh in his own hands, 9 lines of the most beautifully written calligraphy in Devanagari. Not only that, he starts off by saying, Likhtam Naina Tarkhan, Gulere da Basi, like this and so on. And so on, Beta se hueda, Pota hasan hueda, Pota parth hueda, and so on and so forth. Then Nanaka Pakh likhya, and so on, like this. So all information about himself he was giving there. Even with the reservation that if a Panda turns up with the entry by my own brother Namanuku, shows up in the Bahi of another person, then that person will be more authentic as our priest, because he was not able to ascertain whether this priest was their family priest, Pandit Hari Ram. And then he says, I came here on Jesht Parvishte 1, Samvat 1820, which works out to 1763 AD. Not only this, he had taken a brush and just above that entry of 9 lines, he drew a picture, which you will see in the film, of Shiva and Parvati seated on a tiger skin, the Ganga emerging from Shiva's locks, and Bhagirath standing much like Nainsukh here with folded hands. Because the miracle of bringing the divine river from the heavens to the plains had been performed at the asking of Bhagirath. I tell you, I recall that moment with great emotion even now. What else can an art historian ask for? Here are 9 lines in the hand of the painter he's been looking for. Precise, authentic information that you cannot possibly challenge. Not only that, but a little drawing, about 1.5 inches in height or something like that, made by the painter himself. That is something which is unparalleled in the history of Indian painting. I was grateful that I got that opportunity. I was grateful that here was this record which, to my great good luck, showed up at that particular time. And that became, in a certain sense, the fulcrum of my going back and forth in the life of Nainsukh. I don't want to burden you with art historical details. I don't even wish to burden you with people who do not agree with me necessarily. When I was in Zurich a few months ago, the opening of that particular show, which Eberhard, Milo and I put together and so on, it is one of the great shows, I think, of this particular decade. Then I made this remark. I said, I was looking up the dictionary for the meaning of the word exhibit, and one of the meanings is in the legal sense. It is something which you produce as evidence for you to consider, for you to examine and consider. This is exhibit A, this is exhibit B. An exhibition is of that particular nature. There's nothing definitive about it. Nobody can swear by everything that has been said in the catalogue or in the book, but it is something which for you and you and you to consider. Have we done the right thing? Have you collected the right material, interpreted in the right fashion, presented in an agreeable fashion, and so on and so forth? Up to you. I would like only to end this brief and, as I said, annoying intervention by stating that it's been a great pleasure, truly a great pleasure, to have had the friendship of Barbara and Eberhard Fischer, and to have had the occasion to work with Eberhard for a long number of years. And I hope that there will be years allowed to him and to me that we might work still further in the same field. Have a good viewing, enjoy the film, and see it with the eyes of what is called in Sanskrit aesthetics as a sahridaya. The word sahridaya is good. Sahi is of the same heart. We have made this research with one kind of heart, or the same heart went into the making of this particular film. And through that, you will probably pick up some of the great subtleties that Nainsukh wove imperceptibly, absolutely lightly. That, talking about Leonardo da Vinci's drawings, that they don't seem to have been drawn. They seem to have been breathed upon paper. So light are they. So Nainsukh drawings, to me, and I'm partial to him, and you will forgive me for being partial to him, seem to have been breathed upon paper. Sense it and savor it. And may I thank you again.
The beginning of the film is when Nainsukh writes in the Bahi the entry of 1763. Then we start with the date of about 1730, when Nainsukh's elder brother Maneku, who is a great painter but a more conservative painter, returns after having delivered the Gita Govinda to a patroness and is very proud of that he had done this great deal, comes back and sees his younger brother experimenting in a modern style, in a more realistic, Mogulish fashion. There is annoyance between these two brothers, and the father, who is a bit siding Nainsukh, who is interested in these more observing of nature, more observing of personalities, of character studies, but he can't disagree with his eldest son, who takes over the workshop later on. So it is that kind of conflict which is going on till Nainsukh finds a new patron in Zorawar Singh of Jasrota, who comes to Guler, because, by the way, Balwant Singh's mother comes from Guler, and Nainsukh and his family, his brother and father, worship the tantric goddess of the Kuldevi of the painters. She stands on one leg, has 15 arms. In each arm she has one of the patrons of the family. And Nainsukh is forced to leave now Guler and goes to Jasrota. In Jasrota he first serves the father of this Balwant Singh, who is an art lover, entertainment lover, spends most of his fortune. This Zorawar Singh is not a reigning prince, but he is from a sideline, a junior aristocrat there, Mian. And Zorawar dies early when Balwant Singh is only 18 years of age. Now the young man, imitates his father. For you it might be often difficult even to see the difference between Balwant Singh and Zorawar Singh in the film, and is as well spending his money on good dancers and good music, etc. Now then there is some problem in Jasrota with the court Brahmin Harisaran. And all this is known from inscriptions and from the painting. Nothing is invented, by the way. Huh? So this Harisaran plays some kind of trick. Most probably we don't know what happened, but Zorawar Singh is forced to go into exile. And he goes to his mother's place, to Guler, and Nainsukh accompanies him. We have wonderful paintings from the period when he has left Jasrota and is on the march in tent, summer and winter tent. And very soon afterwards, this Balwant Singh dies, and the ashes are taken by Nainsukh and others to Haridwar and are immersed in the Ganga. Here our film then ends. I didn't want to take you the story too much, but it might be easier for me, when you see the film for the very first time, to know this is the historical background of the film. Thank you.
What a great work of art. It's really mesmerizing. Really, it brings one to tears, moment after moment. A relationship which is so dignified, caring, respectful, which is yet to be seen in today's world. And it's really inspiring, not only for painters, for practitioners of art, but also for art lovers, of art historians, and we all who love art, who practice art, who organize art museologists, curators, art historians, painters, art lovers. Each one of us has something to learn from this film.